How you doing?
Hey, Justice.
How
All
you feeling?
right. Good.
How you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain too much.
He misses you. He talks about you every day.
You wouldn't even recognize I'm in these days.
I know he getting
Yes,
so
we.
big,
Oh my
right?
God.
Tall.
He's so big.
I
He's so
know.
big.
And
Oh, yes, we're live, so they want us, I think, to.
I know. I'm
it's
leaving.
family. It's family. Everybody knows Justice.
I'm leaving.
I'm out.
Love you, Jess.
Yay.
All right. So welcome everybody to This Is Not a Drill. We are having we're planning on a really great conversation. This is both of our, I think, last conversation of the night, right, Rosa?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm sure you have like 3 more.
No, this is the last public conversation of the night, at least.
Because you need rest.
Yes. And this is the one I've been waiting for. So I got to start with both of our mutual sister, Patrice. We started with her. She visited my class earlier today. And I get to end with my sister, Rosa. So it gave me motivation all day long. I'm really grateful that you were able to join today. So we're gonna have, I'm trying to share this to my Facebook as well. We're gonna have kind of an informal conversation. It's just me and you one-on-one for the next hour. And for our viewers, you know that this is not a drill. This has become our political education platform for Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. We've been engaging in conversations with folks that are really important to movement building, that align with our abolitionist frame, that help us to deepen our understanding of all different ways in which we can get down in the struggle. So last week we had a really important conversation. Rosa, you might know the Barons. Don't you know the Barons? Charles Barron.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were on last week.
Yeah, Charles was the first person to call me when I got the nomination with Cynthia.
Oh, awesome.
So he's been a mentor, and just as everyone who knows him and Inez are like just powerful. And you know, they were my second and third guests after I had you and my homie Tori on. They were Munifa Lumumba, you, Tori, and are they not amazing and beautiful?
They're amazing. They're amazing. So we had them last week, and we've just been trying to have conversations. Let this be kind of an informal political education class, right? So we talk about things like gentrification, like land use. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. So thank you everybody for joining. This is Not a Drill, which is every Thursday night at 7 o'clock right here on Facebook Live /BLMLA. Please share this video. You can go to the share button and share it on your own page to invite your friends into the conversation. We know that things continue to move, and so some things that have occurred since our last conversation is Black Lives Matter has put out a demand that with Kamala Harris being the only Black woman in the US Senate and her leaving that role to become vice president, we want her replaced by another Black woman. So there's a call for either Karen Bass or Barbara Lee to serve as her replacements. You can find, I said replacements, plural, maybe, who knows, maybe we'll get 2 Black women, right? You can find the link to that petition at blacklivesmatter.com, blacklivesmatter.com. There's also the petition that we mentioned during last week's show to demand that the Democrats give us something for our vote. And I'm gonna be straight up, right? Black people won this vote, and this is what Rosa and I are gonna start our conversation out with. Black people won the vote. Black people voted Trump out, right? And so it's really important that we demand something for our vote. We didn't just give it away. We want something in return. And it was specifically Black women and Black organizers who voted Trump out of office. So this Biden-Harris administration has something to prove to us. And so we're demanding a meeting so that they can know what our expectations are. We're demanding a meeting. That petition, so we started with a letter. We didn't get a response to the letter. So now we're petitioning them to have a meeting with Black Lives Matter. That petition is also at blacklivesmatter.com. So what we're going to talk about tonight, is politics, solidarity, and Black power, and anything else that comes up. Full disclosure, Rosa Clemente is brilliant. She is the co-founder of the National Hip Hop Political Convention. She was the vice presidential nominee in 2008 for the Green Party. She is, I'm gonna say filmmaker. I know you say journalist, but PR on the Map was, powerful. And you got some other work coming that puts you more squarely in filmmaking. You're creative, you're a mother, you're a partner, you're just hella down, right? And so, scholar, soon to be Dr. Rosa Clemente, and an activist. And all of those things are things that you can look up online. What you can't look up online is that Rosa is absolutely one of my closest sisters, friends, comrades. She is one of the folks, you have to find your people in the movement, right? You have to find the people who you can go to and talk about how exhausted you are, or that, you're not sure if your kids are okay, right? Or that, people in the movement are getting on your nerves, or how to strategize around how to take down these systems. I'm grateful that Rosa was placed in my life and has served as that for me and me for her. And so this is going to be, we're going to start off trying to pretend like this is a show. And then I'm sure that it will quickly become what it becomes between Rosa and I. So welcome to This Is Not a Drill. This is not your first time on This Is Not a Drill, but welcome back to This Is Not a Drill, Rosa.
And thank you. And I'm listening to everything, but I'm also Instagram living. I feel like, hey, Hassan Salam, the homie. It's so weird that we can't use Instagram on live platforms, but everybody who's on Instagram, you can go to BLMLA Facebook, or you can stay right here with us. So I'm already like emotional, because I'm a crybaby as a so look, if I was with you right now and we were about to either get into conversation or have a nice dinner, we would be taking a shot of tequila.
Absolutely. We absolutely would.
I'm gonna take mine. I should have told you to get yours.
Dang, I know.
I'm one of the kids.
Let's go text somebody. This is so terrible.
Let me go text somebody.
Wait,
so I'm gonna take.
My brother's here. He could bring me the shot.
Okay. So everybody, cheers, man, because right now we need it. We need it. We've been working our asses off forever, basically.
Salud. Yes.
Salud. Okay, so I love you so much.
I love you.
And I remember when we first met, we were on a panel on mass incarceration, 2014. Everybody who knows me knows I have a really good memory. Jasiri X, Boots Riley was with us.
Yeah.
And I heard you speak and I was like, oh, what? I want to be her friend. Like, I was like, I want to be her friend so bad. She's so dope. We got to talking, and you brought me out to Cal State. I think, which was one of my best academic talks on Afro-Latino, Black Latino. And then 2 years later, you're like, come and do like a pre-doc or spend some time out here. And we did. We moved to California. And it's so crazy because we had just gotten back, we meaning me, Talib Kweli, and Jessica Moore from Ferguson. And then I moved, we drive cross country, we move, you let us live with you. We then find a place at St. Elmo Village. And for those that have not ever heard of St. Elmo Village, go look it up right now. We're moving in our stuff. I remember Halloween night, October 31st. We were still very close to you in terms of distance. And you're like, oh, we're having a BLM meeting at St. Elmo. And I went and I was like, oh shit, this is like BLM. Like, oh my God, like I'm here, like with these incredible people. And then Patrice Colors, for those who know, but should know, Patrice was living right next to me and Mark Anthony. And I was just like, for the first couple of weeks at St. Elmo Village, I was like, I'm supposed to be here at this time right now. Like, oh my God. And that whole 9 months was like us either teaching, going to, getting arrested, or figuring out which kid was going with us to what protests.
Right.
But you know, what I really do remember about that time was the first really big protest when they did not indict the officer who killed Michael Brown. And we were in the streets, and I don't know if you remember, but this car came through.
Man, I just thought about that today, and how I was like, that's my people for real, because what was our response?
Well, we got in front and on the side of the car. I know I threw something at the car.
I'm kicking the shit out the door.
You're kicking it. Your children are there, the three. Alicia's there, and Justice is right there like, oh my God, man. You know, and like we're in the streets. And then the next day I go to cover the BLMLA action on the 101 and ended up getting arrested. I just remember when I was leaving the house to go report on what was going to happen, that my husband was like, yo, don't get arrested. I'm like, I just got here, I'm not going to get arrested. And then I did. And you called him and you were like, hey, yeah, so Rosa just got arrested with the folks from BLM. So we're going to get it together.
That was our first set of arrests. That was, yeah.
And the thing was, it was the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because it was the freeway shut down. But you weren't shutting down the fucking freeway. You were just supposed to be filming. Like you were covering it as a journalist, and they didn't care. They swept you up too.
Well, no, look, I do not in any way consider myself a trained journalist. That's why I say independent, because I shouldn't have been part of the story. But what happened was there was another journalist there, and when things got hectic, that journalist walked away. And I was like, I was very angry, and I was like, I'm staying. But there was a moment where the California State Highway Patrol pulled out a gun. And I was like, no. But I kept my camera going. Right. And the thing is, I have that footage to this day. And when I watch it, I really do believe that if Damon Turner had not stepped a little bit forward and began to de-escalate, that California state trooper would have shot one of the BLMLA members who were partaking in the protests. And then we spent 12 hours in lockup and stuff, and you all worked to make sure that we were out. You know, but what that moment taught me really about you is two things. Like, you can make friends and comrades later in your life. And it's okay to like fall in love with your comrade. And that's for me, like I fell in love with you and I'm in love with you now, you know? And I think that's really important because we do the work and sometimes we just like, it's like a hamster wheel. We just like, we're going to keep doing the work. But I think that I hope that I'm there for you in those moments where you're like, I'm fucking tired. Like, this is hard. Because what I've seen in these 5 years is you become for me, for me.
Are you freezing for everybody or just me? Am I frozen or is Rosa frozen?
Rosa's frozen on my end.
Okay. Uh-oh. So we're gonna hope that she comes back soon. And we're gonna encourage everybody to drop comments or questions in the chat when Rosa comes back. So Rosa has since moved back to New York where she's completing her PhD. She's in upstate New York, Albany. And so sometimes her signal is not that strong. So we're hoping that it'll pick back up and she'll join back. So she's dropped off. We're hoping that she'll rejoin soon. We do want to lift up I want to lift up what's been said about camaraderie and friendships in this movement. And so for me, there are people like Rosa who really sustain us. So everybody who's been to a Black Lives Matter demonstration knows that we always close out with the words of Assata Shakur. It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and protect one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains, right? When we say we must love and protect one another, that shouldn't be a conceptual thing. And so, or solely conceptual thing, right? So we know that Dr. Huey P. Newton talks about revolution as having to be grounded in love, right? The intense love of our people. And that's absolutely what drives us, is the love of our people. But beyond kind of this agape sense of love, right? This love because spirit connects us one to the other. There's also the real and tangible ways in which we love, in which we love as a verb. And I think that through struggle, we get to know each other really deeply. And I know that Megan and Rajay are
We're
both
back.
great.
Oh, you know me. This is the feds.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
I'm talking a little bit about love, Rosa.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, that we have love as this overarching agape love, and we love our people, and that's what drives us into movement. But then there's the way in which we practice love as comrades and friends and sisters and family that emerges through movement, because the work is so laborious and intense, and it can be stressful, right? That to find each other and to latch on to each other, we get to know each other as family, like not like that fake ass, hey fam, and they not really your family, but family as in, your brothers and sisters differently than the rest of the world knows them. That I stress out before an event, right? Before an event, I'm not going to be nice, and I might not speak to half of the people in the room, and it's not personal. It's because that's my personality, right? And then after it gets going and everything's okay, then everything drops away and you're not mad at me for it, right? Because that's just what happens. And so I
have that same thing. I'm the same way. Right before an event, I pace a lot. I have this whole routine. But a lot of times, when we go do engagements, or even while we're doing everything online at this moment, I don't talk and I don't eat, and I always have to tell people who are bringing me to college or university, no, I will not go to dinner before and I will not talk before. I'll do that after. And I've seen that in you, which is similar to me. But I also think what I found in you was the gender opposite of justice, the calmness, because I've gotten better at not being stir shit crazy, but I'm still who I am. And if I see Alicia, you, Tandiwe, or Justice, in my mind, I'm all right, settle down, take a moment, they got you. And I think it is important that we talk about these things, because I mean, I don't want to be, I don't know what the word would be, but I think about the people in my life at this moment, who I want to spend time with, but I also think about like on my last day on this planet as this human, who would I want in the room with me? And I made a list because, you know, girl, I keep everything. I make lists. And who do I not want speaking at my memorial talking about they loved me when they didn't, you know? And I think that's so important. I think sometimes that gets lost. And if that gets lost, then what does it mean to be a comrade if you're not like revolutionary, loving human being, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So let's get into the conversation around politics, right? And one of the things I love about you is you're not afraid to forecast shit, and your forecasts are almost always right. I don't know why I go, I don't know, Rosa, because you haven't been wrong yet. You forecasted this COVID shit, right? You forecasted this political moment. Can you talk to us about what this political moment means with Black people having voted Trump out of office, but also, you know, what it means that a Biden-Harris administration is coming in, and I don't care how tightly Trump holds on to, you know, his key to the White House, he's getting out, right? I think he's getting out, unless there's a different forecast you have for us. I
Well,
think
no, that would be a coup d'etat, and I don't think I'm there yet.
So what does this moment mean for us as Black people?
Well, I mean, first, thank you to every African American Black woman who saved us at this moment. And I mean that for real. And I know I have some other comrades that are like, oh my God, the Democratic Party, you know, and I'm like, listen, I'm still in the Green Party and I voted for the Green Party. You know, with that said, I also understand the nature and the crisis that we're in. And for me, the crisis that we're in is particularly like governmental, but also this could be Mother Earth just realigning. So I think because my discipline in Black studies is history, and I also read a lot of science fiction and dystopic kind of stuff, there's gonna come a moment where Mother Earth is like, that's enough, that's it. Y'all gonna have to stay still at this moment, which is pretty much against everything we do as organizers, right? What does it mean to stay still? So for me at this moment, I am happy that Movement for Black Lives, Mi Gente, BLM, Dream Defenders, that there is a record that says, we're not just gonna let y'all as Democrats get into office. We're gonna force you to talk to us, but even if you don't, we're gonna have it on the record. And when I think about Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, but really Anna Garvey, who really was the backbone of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or I look at a lot of our, let's say for lack of better terms, African descendant, indigenous women, that they all have something in common, that a brighter day is ahead of us. But the only way to get there is to consistently struggle. And I think that we need more people that are committed to struggle and not committed to visibility. We need more people who say, of course, at this moment, we have to remove the maniac from office, but that we don't make the same mistake that happened with a Barack Obama, which is to think that a Democratic administration will do what it really needs to do for working people who we are. And that this is a time to read Reconstruction from Du Bois. And when he talks about the class struggle, I think we're doing as much as we can in all the other kind of disciplines or politics, but I think we're doing a very bad job at what does it look like to struggle, and what does that mean for working people, all of us, but particularly those right now that are being evicted and don't have money and are food insecure. I want us to have more of that inclusion and not let the narrative be taken that like the working class is white men who like now voted for Biden. No, we know exactly why Biden and Harris are there. There's Black women, which then requires us to make sure there are dope Black women who would want to be in certain positions. Like, yo, does Latasha Brown want to be up in there? Then let's fight for that.
Right.
Does many of the African Black women we know, would they be in the White House? Like, yo, I want to be in that cabinet position. Well, let us know. Because this is what's happening right now. It's not just insane. I just said it before we came on. I said 45 in this criminal syndicate are now negligent. They're responsible for negligent homicide. When I call my 78-year-old mom and she's like cursing in Spanish and wishing like harm as a Catholic, I'm like, oh, shit is really bad. Like, where she's like, este pendejo, carajo, bendición. And I'm like, mom, you good? She's like, I can't take it. Me and your dad did not work this hard for our grandchildren's futures to not be secure.
Right.
And then she said to me, she said, you keep doing what you're doing, and you keep doing that with your friends and your activists, because that's all we have right now. I was like, oh, yes. So yeah.
So so here's the tension that I find, right? So we have this Biden-Harris administration that's coming in. They absolutely owe their victory to us, right? And then there's this air of celebration, which I actually kind of connect with. I'm also a Black woman from Oakland. I also went to Howard University. I'm also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, all things that are that Kamala Harris identifies with, right? And this was something that was lifted up early on. I lifted up early on that Kamala Harris, in many ways, even though she's been painted as like this female Barack Obama, she's different because she's grounded in many of the traditions of many African-American traditions. She's more tightly connected to things like, people don't understand that it means something when you went to Howard University, when you went to an HBCU, that every graduate of every HBCU feels something kind of emotionally about what Kamala Harris means. That I got this t-shirt sitting right here and I'm totally planning on wearing it tomorrow. Thank you, Megan.
Lift it up.
We are
I like that.
As Black women and members of the first Black sorority founded in 1908 in this country, we're absolutely, strolling for and lifting up pinkies and ski-weeing for Kamala Harris. And it's not just AKAs, it's all of the Divine Nine, which is, the Black fraternities and sororities. And so there's kind of this emotional response to the symbolism of what Kamala Harris means that in many ways is even deeper than the response to a Barack Obama presidency, right? Yeah. Because we see her differently, that she's from Oakland, right? Not born in Hawaii, right? Born in Oakland, California, which before gentrification was one of the Blackest cities in the country, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's this emotional response to her. There's an emotional response to having beaten Donald Trump and Biden's kind of connection with Obama as his former vice president. And people, I think, are choosing to forget intellectually that Biden was seen as a counterbalance to Obama. Biden was far to the right of Obama. The Democratic play was really about how do we get racist ass white voters to vote for this ticket, and Biden was their answer, right? But there's still this emotional response to the symbolism of it. And my mother made me be quiet until after they won to say that there's also some intellectual work that we have to do when we look at Biden, when we look at even Harris, and we say, that their legacy hasn't necessarily been one that has uplifted the masses of Black people. So it's a long ass fucking question, but how do we kind of, we don't want to stop Black people from having our moment, our sigh of relief. Because I am so fucking relieved that Donald Trump is going to get his ass out, right?
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to like get in the way of that collective exhale, but at the same time, we have to organize ourselves to demand something of this Biden-Harris administration. What has to happen to hold them accountable and to usher in, you know, our set of expectations as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so first, I think we do rejoice in that collective history. Like Frantz Fanon says, do not let the system take away your joy.
Right.
So I'm not with some of my comrades that are maybe more pessimistic than I am at this moment, because yes, Trump had to go, period. Look at what's happening right now. And the thing is that COVID is killing Latinos and African Americans and Native Americans at 4 times the rate. So I'm really not trying to hear the pontification of, you know, Puerto Rican nationalists, Black nationalists, Black radical, Puerto Rican radical, like it doesn't make a difference. Yes, it fucking does make a difference. You know, it is our people who are dying, who are dead right now, and nurses are buying heavy duty garbage bags to wrap them because there's not enough body bags. Okay. And as a Puerto Rican, come on, I'm Puerto Rican, to do through paper towels at my people. So like, I have an extra like, yes, get the fuck up out of here. I think what it requires at this moment as well is that we have to decide what role we want to play as organizers and activists. If you want to play the policy agenda role, will maybe be a critic of the policy or agenda, but I'm really trying to be more mindful of what it takes for us as Black and Afro-Latina, Black Latina women to be in any of these spaces where we still have to deal with the patriarchy and the misogyny, and that people will be like, oh, you don't know any better. Don't fucking tell me that. I ran for vice president in 2008, okay? Like, running for vice president showed that I have some faith in the electoral political process. And I'm not gonna pretend that I didn't. So I'm not gonna also pretend that, I'll tell you, and I had the same feeling in 2008. I had like an election party in New York City. Obviously, we didn't win as the Green Party. But when Barack and Michelle walked out there, I asked the people at the place we were in, like, everybody be quiet. Look at this.
Yeah.
And I had the same thing when Kamala came out there. Look at this. Because I'm not going to discount the history that was made against the forces of white supremacy.
Right.
And then the next day we wake up and then we realize that 6 out of 10 white women voted for Trump.
Right.
So y'all did more damage than in 2016. So yes, we need that moment. It's like a catharsis, almost like, okay, we can breathe now for a day and now we back up at it. Right. And we don't have to deal with that. But we kind of do for the next 63 days. This dude is crazy. He could start a war with Iran, North Korea. Nobody knows where he's at. Is he in his basement tweeting right now? Who has the nuclear codes? Right. Who's actually going to be the person that takes him out on inauguration? And when I say take out, I mean like remove him from the White House.
And we got to be clear about that because we know how we're monitored.
Yeah. So for me, I'm like, my comrades, you and Kali and so many other dope people are also forward-thinking visionaries. But this is where we're at right now. So what's the role we're going to play right now? I don't want to be the pessimist.
Right.
And I want a future for our children. And I want to be aligned with my comrades, even if that means I have a different way of getting at freedom, that I see operational unity as the main thing we need right now.
So for people who are unfamiliar with that term, operational unity, what does that mean for you?
That we as Black and brown folks, or however we want to be described, are united for Black freedom. You know, we might not all agree on the mission statement, the exact agenda, but that our goal is, as Robin Kelly taught us, Black freedom dreams, Black vision. And as an Afro-Black Latina Puerto Rican woman, I am 100% clear that our history is bound together. And that lastly, they don't want it. The main thing in this country, right, you already know this, is that white people thought they were going to get rid of us, and they're not. And we're going to be the majority. And white flight up into the suburbs, that's white scaredness is what's happening right now. These white people are literally like, they're taking over. And it's like, we don't want to take over what you think America is, but we're not going anywhere. You try to enslave us, exterminate us, inject us with medical experiments, assassinate, political prisoner sterilization, and we are here. We're not going nowhere. So that's on y'all to decide whether you want to live in some type of human unity. If not, we ain't going nowhere. And that's what they're mad at, that we still exist, that we are still here.
Right. And when you talk about operational unity, it's operational unity for us. What bothered me about Biden's victory speech is he first talked about wanting to unite with fucking Trump supporters, right? There is no unification with white supremacists. So the majority of white people in this country, right, they're the only group who voted in majority for Trump, only group. They did it in 2016 and they were even worse in 2020, right? They're the only group that did that. There is no desire, at least on my part, and I think I'm speaking for you, to unite with these fools, right? The operational unity is those of us who are Black, who understand that this world has to be transformed, not just reformed. We have to stop bickering about differences that are not the primary struggle right now, and we have to move forward differently. I love kind of what you also challenge to folks who identify as Latinx, Chicanx, right? That so there was, I actually got a note that I didn't respond to. Somebody who said they're scared to drop. Oh my God, I'm sure
they're scared to what?
They're scared to drop a question in the comments because they don't want to get attacked for having this thought about what Black and brown folks need to be doing. Now, I don't know if she's brown or if she's white, because there was also another comment about what defines Blackness, and it was made by a white person. And I'm going, you don't get to tell me or Rosa or anybody else what defines Blackness. You're white, so just shut the fuck up and sit back, right?
Basically, yeah.
But I love how you constantly challenge folks who identify as Chicanx, Latinx to also, one, remember that most folks, more enslaved African people, came to Latin America than came to the United States. So these are not mutually exclusive categories, that you need to unpack why it is you look like that and why your grandmother is clearly African. If your grandmother is African, what does that make you, right? Yeah. But also kind of really complicating what solidarity looks like. So you had this really spirited conversation around some things that Eva Longoria said. And I'm wondering if you want to address that and why it is you deliberately choose to constantly put out and identify yourself not as Chicanx, not as Latinx, but as an Afro Puerto Rican, as a Black Puerto Rican?
Yeah, I mean, three things. So my dad, if people have seen a picture, my dad is phenotypically Black and my mom is phenotypically white in the way we think about phenotype if people were like what color they are in America. But it wasn't until college and I was allowed around into classes with African-American women professors, that I began to understand the complexity of race and its construction. Because I grew up, how many Puerto Ricans and Dominicans particularly grow up, like people are like, what are you? You're Puerto Rican, you're Dominican, or you're Spanish. And that I went to college in 1990. So at that time, the words that were used, people would be like, you're Spanish, or they would say, oh, you're Hispanic. And then through my Black studies classes and Puerto Rican studies classes, I began to understand like complexities of race and race as a construction. But when I graduated from SUNY Albany, I got then 2 years later, Dr. James Turner recruited me to the Africana Studies and Research Center in Cornell. And I hope people know who Dr. Turner is. If not, read his work. He coined the term scholar activist. He called me and he said, do you want to come to Cornell? And if you do, I want you to do your thesis on Young Lords, race, and the counterintelligence program. I said, okay. So I went to Cornell and spent 2 years. I am so grateful for that. From there, I ended up meeting Dr. Maita Moreno Vega. I met Lumumba, Bandeli, Monifa. And when I moved to the city, after I graduated from Cornell, I joined the Malcolm X grassroots movement. And it was the first space outside of my organization at SUNY Albany, where I had become the president of the Black Student Union. And actually, when I became president, I had a Latino administrator call me in and say, you know, you need to pick a side. Are you Black or are you Hispanic? And I was like, dude, you're supposed to be encouraging me to be a leader, not questioning how I'm identifying, you know? And it was particularly like the Pan-Caribbean and Pan-African community that really like enveloped me. So by the time I joined Malcolm X grassroots movement, I was pretty clear, like, yo, I'm African descendant. And then we were having a meeting and somebody was like, yo, Rosa, you Black, but you really are not Black. And I was like, dude, your mother's white. Mine is Puerto Rican. So who's Black? And I ended up writing this article. And the only reason that Who is Black article, God, 20 years blew up was because one of the brothers from the Nation of Final Call was like, Minister Farrakhan would like to put what you just wrote in the paper. And I was like, what? The Final Call, like, whoa. And Davy D, and this was in like, we were still using fax machines and listservs, sent my thing out. And what I really talked about there is that we don't have an understanding of the full slave trade, the trajectory of the Middle Passage, but that if I was racially going to identify, I would be racially Black. And that did not sit well with people in the Latino community, and still to this day doesn't. And for me, I have my hardcore Latino brothers and sisters, Afro Indigenous, that have always been there with me. But I remember like one time I was so upset because a Latino event got canceled because they're like, we don't want you to talk about race. And I was like, that's crazy. And I called Maita and she was like, yo, buck up. This is gonna happen to you till the day you die. You were born on the margins and probably gonna live there. You don't have time to be crying. I was like, oh, okay. You know, and so for me, I also am very clear that there is a specific African-American struggle in this country that I have not been part of. And I respect that. So when I heard Eva go and the real heroines, I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, no, 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 don't do this. And I never watched MSNBC and I was just like, don't, oh, no, no. But afterwards, if you listen to the interview, she says, because of the number of Latino men that voted for Trump. So what I did was I called Carmen Perez because basically Eva Longoria, America Ferrera, Monica Jimenez, and Carmen Perez started She Se Puede. And Eva was on that interview under She Se Puede. So I called Carmen. I was like, girl, I love y'all, but I'm gonna have to go on Instagram and handle this. By the time I did the first Instagram, Eva had reached out. And the minute I talked to her, I felt her heart. I was like, she knows. She already been called some of her sisters that were like, no, girl, you cannot take this win away from African-American women, Black women in America. And we continued to talk. We talked the next day. I said we should do the interview, and we did. And I hope people do watch the interview, because we talk so much about accountability that when someone is accountable, the response was like, oh, whatever. I'm like, wait a minute. We talked so much about accountability, and with the 24 hours, she was like, I fucked up. I was wrong. I'm going to talk to sisters, and I'm sorry. And I was like, well, if we want accountability, here it is. And I'm not going to just, cancel somebody who's also like, Eva Longoria has her master's in Chicano studies. And when you see that interview with me and her, she is like, very fucking clear on systems and the work that needs to be done. And what she really said is we need more representation of Afro, Black, Latina, Latino, Latinx people. And I agree with that. The fact that there is not one show, podcast, or journalist that is Afro or Black, Latino, Latina is problematic. And that's why I started my show. But now I've regrouped and go, no, this is a time right now. This is a time when you organize. And actually, like any organizer worth his, her, or non-binary gender salt, it's in the toughest moments where you create something new. And I've had enough scuffles with people to know when someone is real and when their heart is like, fuck, my bad. And honestly, lastly, I'm not really trying to get advice from men at this point who are telling me to just cut off a sister. You're not going to be that dude where you're still in your patriarchy and misogyny telling me to cut off somebody. Like, I'm not doing that no more. Yeah, so that's how it all went down,
Yeah, where can people see that interview?
They could go to my YouTube channel, Rosa Clemente. The show is called Disrupt the Chaos. And also I have it up on my Instagram stories as well.
And we're getting a new platform. Disrupt the Chaos is going to grow, right?
Yeah, no, well, I have to restart it first, I'm in some
calling for it. We're claiming that it's going to restart.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it all comes down to resources, and I think there's some things in line, and I also know when will be the right time to reach out, which I have to you and some other sisters and things like that, and I'm going to do it, this is the perfect time to do it. It works right into my dissertation process. And I really see the necessity because I see a lot of younger, just powerful sisters that are like, no, I'm a Black Dominican, I'm a Black Colombian, I'm a Black Brazilian. And I'm like, 5 years ago, people weren't, like, I was the aberration. Right. Now I'm the norm.
Right.
And I love that.
Right. And I think for a lot of African-American women, and my sister-in-law just brought me this, so I'm gonna catch up with you real quick.
Okay, you go ahead. I just have water now. Cheers.
Okay, we'll pretend that that's tequila in the bottle.
That's a lot of tequila, just so you know. And that's why
yeah.
That's my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting to like just see younger folks really be like, this is who I am. What I do caution though is like, there can always be an overcorrection. And one of my homegirls, Mari Neves Alba, is like, listen, yes, be proud that you're African descendant and stuff, but also know the history of particularly like African American people. Like, there comes a time where you're trying to be like super Black and you're like, slow your roll real quick. You still have some privilege. You're still light skinned. And in fact, I asked one of my friends, I'm like, should I even identify like African? What am I was going through this moment. She's like, girl, your hips and your nose, you're fine. Like, yeah, you're an African descendant. I was like, thank you. I just wanted to know the truth. Like, am I wrong? Because there was so much negativity coming at me as BLM was rising, not from folks in BLM, but other people who were trying to like talk about my experience in BLM without talking to me. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
None of that happened. Like, all I remember one time was one meeting where there were a couple sisters, and afterwards we talked. And then I also had to realize, like, I'm in LA. I'm in a geographically different place. There is a historical wedge that white supremacy has put against Mexican Americans and African Americans. And look, one of the nights Justice was coming home from work, some Mexicanos rolled up on him on some negativity. And I had to be like, just remember, you're not in New York.
Right.
Just remember what the system did to put Mexicano and African American people apart in LA through the prison system. So engage in that, but there has to be a moment where like, I'm not fucking justifying who I am to you anymore.
Right.
You don't like it?
And I
You
think
don't have to
some of the
listen to me.
stuff that comes from African American women is also the opposite. Like, how did you not know you were Black? So I remember I had this student, Monica, who was Dominican, obviously Black, like hair way nappier than mine, skin much deeper brown than mine, obviously Black, right? And it was in my class that she began to identify as Black. And I was like, well, what the hell did you think you were? Like, look at you, right? You clearly look Black. And so I think that there is some questioning that comes from the other end as well. Like, is this an attempt to capitalize on the privilege that comes from at least not being Black, right? Because that's really, the threshold here in this country, right? At least I'm not Black. And so if Afro Latinos identify without the Afro in front of them, there's a concern that they're trying to align themselves. There's this aspirational whiteness or proximity to whiteness, right? And I think that what you've done and what other folks have done is said, no, I don't think it's conscious, right? It's not a conscious move away from Africanness, right? Some just have to kind of come to a point of awakening. And I think especially in places like Los Angeles, that also exposes tremendous potential for movement building and for transformational work.
And y'all have done that in BLMLA because you are working with also quote Latinx people whose brothers, sisters have been killed by the police. But what I always, I'm writing a lot right now on this, is colonized lands, colonized minds. But also that as a Puerto Rican, my experience is also different than of other people that are immigrants, because we're United States citizens, because the United States invaded us in 1898. We have this American citizenship like African-American brothers and sisters and treated as non-citizens. So if we look at history from the late 50s till now, you're never not gonna see a Puerto Rican supporting a struggle alongside an African-American, and you're never gonna not see the RBG flag at a protest for Puerto Rican rights. But other folks, Brazilians, Colombians, those are all immigrant experiences. I don't have that. So why, if you could come to America and not be Black, why would you wanna be Black? when
Mm,
America and the world is anti-Black.
right.
Because,
Right.
oh, sorry.
We're coming to the end of the
Oh, yeah.
time. We have about 3 minutes left,
Oh,
4
okay.
minutes left. But
Yeah.
there's a question that came in on Facebook around, here's what it is. Why hasn't there been a stronger and more powerful Black movement in Latin America, given that most Africans went to Latin America, right? So why is there not a consciousness? Why is there not a movement? Why aren't people in Latin America, like you said, all of the journalists that we see who are Latinx, Chicanx are white appearing, right?
Well, yeah, I would push back heavily on that. First, I want to tell people, if you're watching Telemundo and Univision, all you're going to see are white Latinos. All right. Like if you're watching Red Table Talk with Gloria Stefan, she does not represent the larger and definitely not the Afro-Black experience of Latino, Latina, and Latinx. And also be very clear, there have been Black social movements in Latin America.
Like
Colombia,
what's happening in Brazil right now.
Brazil, Colombia rewrote its constitution in 1990. What's happening in Chile, Nicaragua, the
Venezuela.
emerging Black Renaissance in Puerto Rico, the fact that now you have younger Dominicans that are literally like, yo, I'm African, I am Black. And I think part of that is that people focus on the United States as a source of information. No, go online and see the hundreds and thousands of Black social groups all throughout Latin America and Central America. And lastly, let us never forget this. White supremacy, the first tenet is divide and conquer. It doesn't mean we have to be united in every way. What it does mean is that other Afro-Latino, or if you want to call yourself Latinx, whatever the new word is, our experience is that we have to fight, divide, and conquer. And it's much easier for people to be like, oh yeah, Dominicans aren't Black. Like, yo, if you're Black in the Dominican Republic and rep that, you might get killed, just as African-American men, women, and trans people are being killed by the police. And that Latin America sees the American news. They see what's happening to Black people in the United States around state violence.
We are at the end of our time. What last words do you have for our folks?
Let's keep moving forward. You know, this is what we would call a nadir in the struggle, and the only way is up. So we got to keep it moving. It's important what identity is, but it's also important what your politics are. We got a lot of darker people that are selling us out. So like, if you want to rely on phenotype, that's not how we're gonna get free.
All skin folk and kin folk, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. Thank you, Rosa. How do people follow you?
Rosa Clemente, just at everything. You can go to Instagram, and if you want to get in contact with me, ClementeRose@gmail, or tell Melina and she'll give you my number.
No, I won't.
If you're too interested.
You know I'm not giving nobody your number.
Well, if it's a gig, you know, I'll give you permission.
I'll give your email up. Thank you. It was great being with you. I'm glad that you had me take a shot. I miss you. Need you to be here because you really are, you know, one of the few spaces that I have for, you know, joy and love and exhaling. And so I pray that this pandemic passes quickly and that we're together in physical space really soon. So please give my love to Justice and Alicia, and I'll give the kids your love as well, and we'll talk really soon.
And Melina, let me just say one thing that I've been wanting to say to you. For people that don't know, when Melina brought me in to teach, she is the person that said, make this Afro-Latino class. And some people didn't want it, and she fought for it. And it's one of the first Afro-Latino classes that were taught in the Cal State system, but it was the first one I finally got to teach after 20 years. So this is why I have such a deep and abiding love for Pan-African studies, but also that Melina trusted me to do what I'm good at. And that's very rare in my life. And I just want people to understand that she is that intellectual that's like, yeah, you're going to do this class and you're going to do it for undergraduates and graduate students. I love you. Thank you for
Love
that.
you too. I love you too. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, Pro Bono ASL, for always joining us in everything that we do. Thank you for making it accessible. Thank you, Mark. I don't know who else was interpreting for us tonight, but we love you and we appreciate you. Thank you for always being on. Thank you to Megan and Rajay for having the back end on this. And please share. So this will be up on Facebook. You can share away with your groups, with your people, post it on your page. We won't be joining you next week. So there is no show next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving and a lot of folks are going to be eating turkey. So we won't be on next Thursday, but inshallah, we'll be back the following Thursday. So please do work in the interim. One thing that's coming up for BLMLA is we are having a strategy session on how to hold the new DA, George Gascon, accountable on what expectations we have for him. And so we'll be doing that on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Right here on Facebook Live. So we hope that you will join us Tuesday night, 7 p.m., Facebook Live. Thank you, everybody. Peace out.